If one of Assad's bombs falls in Syria, but the Russians and Iranians say it didn't, does it ever make a sound? I'm Scott Lucas. This is today's EA Worldview on Iran. Can Tehran win in Syria? This week, Iran suffered an apparent setback when it was not allowed to attend the Geneva II peace conference on Syria. A United Nations invitation issued to Tehran was rather hastily withdrawn after objections from the Syrian opposition and from the United States. Iran flat out said, "No, we will not give up support of President Assad in exchange for a seat at the table." So does that mean that the Islamic Republic is now out in the cold? Well, not quite. Not by a long shot. Iran's strategy on Syria has never relied on being in the midst of the diplomatic negotiations. After all, this is a regime which, since the start of the Syrian conflict in March 2011, has pumped in economic aid, military assistance, and advisors to Syrian forces and to President Assad. This is an Iran which has provided advice from its elite military unit, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. This is an Iran which in July 2013 issued a $3.6 billion credit to Damascus, a credit that could be used for badly needed oil supplies. So even if Iran is not sitting in Switzerland at the peace talks, it still is a key player where it matters, on the ground in Syria. But does that mean a winning strategy? Well, yes, it could do so. Iran initially didn't play its hand very well when it came to the propaganda around its alliance with Assad. For example, its military advisors were caught on camera a couple times too often. So it looked like Iran was basically not only propping up, but in the words of some media outlets, leading the fight against the Syrian population and opposition. Iran also seemed to be on the wrong side of the fence from the West as it tried to resolve other issues, like the question of its nuclear program. But over the last few months, Iran, and let's be honest, the Russians, have come up with a much better PR strategy. If you look at the Russian press, state-owned press, if you look at Iran's state-owned and semi-official press, and if you look at the Syrian official press, you'll notice an interesting convergence. Every day, all three will talk about the threat from terrorists, from foreign fighters, from takfiris, that is, Muslim infidels. They will target Saudi Arabia as being the evil instigator of Syria's civil war. And then they will make their offer. We're the peacekeepers here. We don't want this fight. We don't want these foreign fighters on Syrian soil. Look, if you can put pressure on Saudi Arabia, other sponsors of these evil insurgents, this could all go away within weeks. Now, you and I may know that's not exactly true. You may know that the Russian and Iranian assistance to President Assad has been used, for example, to drop bombs on the civilian population, none of whom, as far as I know, have been supported by Saudi Arabia or are foreign fighters. You and I might know that Russian and Iranian assistance has been used to support the Syrian military as it blockades areas of civilians. You and I might know that Russia, with Iranian support, has vetoed UN resolutions to try to do something about the situation. But even if you and I know it, if we don't see it in the headlines, in other words, if Moscow and Tehran preach the fact that they are the sensible, peaceful ones, then Iran's strategy works. And Iran has an advantage here. It has a President Rouhani rather than a President Ahmadinejad. Because you see, Ahmadinejad was the face of aggression, of hostility. Rouhani, well, he actually preaches moderation, engagement, dialogue. How can Iran be so bad, so destabilizing, when it has such a moderate leader? So watch for Iran, using Foreign Minister Zarif as well as Rouhani, to continue to say, look, we can all get along here. It's the others who aren't playing nicely. The Saudis, sometimes the Europeans, and always those dreaded takfiris. Iran, in other words, will try to take the propaganda high ground. And signs are that unless others challenge it and call it out for its continued support for war rather than peace, its support for a brutal dictator rather than for democracy, it might just succeed. I'm Scott Lucas. This is today's EA Worldview on Iran and Syria.